Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite GPP or tournament plays for this Week 5 NFL DraftKings main slate. What I'm going to do here today is go through a couple of my favorite game stacks, dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks, and then wrap up the video with another low-priced option or sub 4K wide receiver play. With that being said, let's dive into my spreadsheet here. And like we always do, we're going to kick things off here in the spreadsheet in the top left-hand corner with those highest implied game totals. Talked about this in my cash video yesterday. Go check that out. I'm definitely interested in some of these games here, but more so interested in the highest implied team totals. There's a handful of teams here projected to score above 25 points, and a couple teams there to score 4+ touchdowns. You can see that listed behind me, and can use that as a reference point as I'm going through some of my favorite tournament plays here. With that being said, let's dive into a couple of game stacks that I'm interested in this week. And yes, I think that Eagles-Cardinals game is 100% stackable, but probably going to be the most popular game to target this week as well. So I figured I'd get away from that, go with two other stacks here that I like. First being this game between the Chargers and Browns. I think there's a lot of intrigue around this game, and for what it's worth, I think it's being overshadowed by that afternoon game of the Eagles and Cardinals. I mean, Justin Herbert is projected for 4% ownership. That's just too low. I think it would be a lot higher if that Lions-Seahawks game didn't blow up last week, because the Chargers played very well themselves. You could have stacked up Justin Herbert with Eckler, Mike Williams, and Gerald Everett. All four of those guys played very well, albeit a good matchup against Houston. You could have ran it back with Dameon Pierce too, who had 28+ DraftKings points himself. So yeah, I like going to this game here. It's definitely projected to be much lower owned than that game between the Eagles and Cardinals. I like stacking up Justin Herbert here with Austin Eckler, who's been so heavily involved in the passing game here as of late, and Gerald Everett. Both those guys have seen an 18-19% target share since Keenan Allen went out with an injury in week 2. And then running it back there with Amari Cooper, you could do that with Nick Chubb, or even someone who's a little cheaper like David Njoku at $3,800. And you could even mix in someone like Josh Palmer on the Chargers side of things as well, who's $5,000. But this game in general, I do like. Second highest implied total on the main slate, and for whatever reason, it's being overlooked. And then another game stack I like here this week is that game between the Jags and Texans. I just talked about Justin Herbert and that offense for the Chargers lighting up that Houston defense last week, and well, Trevor Lawrence isn't quite on Justin Herbert's level. He has played well this year, and he's very affordable there at $5,600. You could stack him up with Christian Kirk and Zay Jones there. Very affordable to do that. And being that Zay Jones is expected back here this week, I like that because it's going to move Christian Kirk back into the slot where he played the first 3 weeks and saw a 28% target share. And you go look at his game log, he had some really nice games as well. And then Zay Jones here, again, very cheap at $4,100. A guy who saw 9+ targets in 2 of his first 3 games. You know, that Texans defense, I've talked about it already, not very good this year and haven't been for years, ranking 27th overall in total defensive DVOA. And then we can run it back there with Dameon Pierce, who looks like a legit RB1 in this Texans offense, getting more involved in this offense week by week, playing more snaps and getting more touches in general, which has actually led to him finishing as RB5 and RB9 over the past 2 weeks. Now, just want to take a quick minute to talk about one of the sponsors on this channel, Lucra. If you have not downloaded Lucra, it is completely free to get started. I'm actually going to throw a QR code up on the screen here right now. You can scan this with your phone. It's going to download the app, and once it does that, it's going to give you my referral code, which is GRIFF, GRIFF, and give you $25 in free play money. Now, you can use that free play money to compete against anybody, friends, family, or someone random. And if you win those contests, you'll actually see that free play money convert to real cash. So if you win enough of your contests with that free play money, you might legit never have to deposit a single dollar on Lucra. You can just build a bankroll from there. So again, I'll throw that QR code up on the screen one more time. You can scan this with your phone here. It'll download the app, include my referral code GRIFF, GRIFF, and give you that $25 in free play money. All right, now diving into some of my favorite individual plays here, we're going to kick it off with the quarterbacks. And I talked about Tom Brady in my cash plays video yesterday, but I really like him in tournaments as well. And yes, I understand he's probably going to be one of the more popular quarterbacks on this 12-game main slate, but I'll look to get contrarian elsewhere. I think the Bucs are going to come out hot and heavy in this game after losing each of their last 2 games. Plus, this game at home here is against a divisional opponent in the Atlanta Falcons, so I just don't see them taking their foot off the gas in this game. He's obviously very affordable there as well at $6,000, which is nice. Had he not played on Sunday night, I think his pricing would be closer to $7,000. But I love the matchup here. The secondary for Atlanta has not been very good to start this season, yielding the 4th highest success rate per drop back to quarterbacks, while also ranking 10th in yards per attempt and 12th in passing touchdown rate. Plus, Brady is coming off of his best game of the season, albeit he was trailing in that entire game. He had a season high in attempts, passing yards, and touchdowns, and finished with 29 plus DraftKings points. It certainly helps when he has his top 2 wide receivers back in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and I think we could stack him up with both of those guys. Now, if you watched my cash plays video yesterday, I highlighted quite a few running backs, and I really like Delvin Cook on the tournament side of things. I really think James Robinson is interesting, Breece Hall, so go check that out as well. I think those running backs are in play, but I went with 3 other running backs here as well that I do believe are going to fly under the radar here in week 5. And when I say fly under the radar, what I typically mean is guys who are projected for 10% ownership or less. Now, Derrick Henry is projected around 10 to 11% ownership, so he's right on the edge there, but at $8,200 here, I think people are going to look for other options, especially considering it's not the best matchup here against the Washington defense, who have been solid against running backs this year. However, what I think is really intriguing about Derrick Henry is he's seen a 25% target share here over the past 2 games, and we all know he's not notorious for getting heavily involved in the passing game like a Christian McCaffrey, like an Alvin Kamara, or someone like Austin Eckler. But 25% target share? I don't know if it's going to continue going forward, but if it is, we might consider this guy in cash games going forward. But we all know that Derrick Henry only needs 1 or 2 plays to break a long touchdown as well against anybody, and when they get towards the goal line, he's the go-to guy as well. So yeah, he's floating around that 10 to 11% ownership right now, but if he's going to be that heavily involved in the passing game going forward, I like it. And another running back who's been pretty heavily involved in the passing game here over the past 2 weeks is Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills, who's projecting around 9% ownership in this game. He's seen an 18% target share here over the past 2 weeks. Really intrigued about that, especially at this price of $6,100. And plus, you're just getting a piece of an offense that's projected to have the highest implied team total on this main slate. Everyone wants to go to Josh Allen. Everyone wants to go to Stephon Diggs, and rightfully so. But if you kind of want to pivot off of that, I think Singletary looks nice here at this price of $6,100. And then the last running back I got listed there is Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins. Very cheap price tag there of $5,000, but he's coming fresh off a week where he saw season-high 15 touches and played 72% of the offensive snaps. Now, I know Chase Edmonds has vultured all the touchdowns toward the goal line here over the past 2 weeks, but I think Mostert is going to be that guy one of these weeks sooner than later. Why not this week here against the New York Jets, whose defense has some promising pieces on the back end, but has still not been very good here in 2022? Plus, with Teddy Bridgewater starting this week, Miami might look to just slow things down a little bit and run the ball more in general. Now, folks, before we dive into the wide receivers here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I'm going to have football content coming out for you guys all year long. Now, like most weeks, there's a lot to love about the wide receiver position when it comes to tournaments or GPPs. I got 4 guys listed on the spreadsheet here, but again, go check out my cash plays video from yesterday. Handful of guys that I would play in tournaments there as well. Chris Olave looks really nice at $5,700, or Marquez Callaway at $3,300. I'll talk about him when I get to that low-priced option, but Steph Diggs here, I do like the matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who've allowed 43 DraftKings points per game to opposing wide receivers this year. That's the 6th most in the NFL. Diggs currently leads this Bills team with a 25% target share and is seeing 36% of the team's air yards. Yeah, Diggs is pretty much matchup-proof in my opinion. I think he's probably the best route runner in the NFL, top 3 for sure. And again, the Buffalo Bills, highest implied team total here on the main slate. I'd like to get some exposure to that. Why not a guy they target game in and game out and give him plenty of deep shots as well? Mike Evans, I talked about him with Tom Brady. You could stack up both Godwin and Evans with Brady. All 3 of those guys very affordable. Yes, Brady and Godwin are probably going to be 2 of the most popular plays here on the main slate, which is kind of why I like Mike Evans, or highlighting him here at least. He is projected to be lower owned than Chris Godwin, so if you just want to do a little conventional stack there with Brady and Evans, I have no no problem with that either. It's a good matchup against Atlanta. I talked about that earlier. We then got Terry McLaurin there of the Washington Commanders. They got no Jahan Dotson here this week, so might see an extra few targets go McLaurin's way. And this is a great matchup here against the Tennessee Titans at home, who ranked 26th overall in pass DVOA. McLaurin has yet to have a big game this year, one of those 25-plus DraftKings point performances. This could be the week where he gets there, especially if the Commanders are playing from behind or trailing in this game. And then Garrett Wilson there, like this price of $5,200. I know Corey Davis was kind of the guy last week with Zach Wilson coming back, but Garrett Wilson still played a lot of snaps, ran a lot of routes, and what I thought was very intriguing here, just doing some research this week, the Miami Dolphins have run the third most man coverage scenarios on the defensive side of the ball, obviously, and Wilson leads the NFL in route success rate versus man coverage this year. That's saying a lot for a rookie wide receiver who's only going to get better going forward, and again, a really good price tag there at $5,200. Next, we got the tight ends here, and I listed 2 tight ends on this spreadsheet because, again, I talked about a handful in my cash plays video yesterday. Talked about Tyler Higbee. I definitely think he's in play in tournaments. Pat Freiermuth, I think, is interesting at $4,100. David Njoku, talked about him, and I talked about him on this video as well. And even someone like Tyler Conklin at $3,700. So some nice low-priced tight end options this week. We don't have Travis Kelce, we don't have Darren Waller, and we don't have Mark Andrews. I do like Dallas Goedert here this week if we want to spend up at the tight end position. $4,700 isn't very expensive, but he is one of the higher priced guys at the tight end position here this week. He also has the second highest yards after catch total across the entire NFL, which was a bit surprising at the tight end position, but hey, I'll take it. And has a great matchup here against the Arizona Cardinals, who rank 30th overall against the tight end position. Now, I want to get some exposure to that game. I mentioned it earlier. It's probably going to be one of the most popular games on this main slate. I think Dallas Goedert is one of my favorite plays in general, though. And then Irv Smith here, this is more of a punt tight end option. He only played about 57% of the offensive snaps last week, and I don't love that, but at $3,200, I don't mind the matchup here against Chicago. If you go look at the stats, I know Chicago's been solid against the tight end position, but I think Minnesota should come out hot and heavy in this game. Yeah, they should have done that last week against the Saints too. But hey, they're back at home. Like I said, it's down to the price here at $3,200. He does have 18 targets here over the past 3 weeks, and 4 of those have been in the red zone. So again, it's more of a punt option, but he's got 15 and 20 plus DraftKings point upside on the right day. And then I got a few defenses there. I'll keep this short and sweet. You guys know the deal. I'm not afraid to spend up a little extra at the defensive position in my tournament lineups. I don't do that in my cash lineup. I'm just going to roll out the Cowboys this week. I talked about them pretty extensively in my cash plays video yesterday, so I don't need to go over that again. But the Vikings and Jags here in the mid 3K range are interesting. Again, you got the Vikings back at home here. That building is crazy to play in Minnesota. Going against Justin Fields here, who's thrown the ball 32 total times through 4 weeks. That is just egregious. 32 times should be a weekly total, not your season total through 4 weeks, and he's not afraid to take sacks or even turn the ball over when he does throw it. And then you got the Jags there going against the Texans and David Mills. Mills doesn't look all that great this year, 4 interceptions himself this year, and the Jags rank second in the NFL with 9 takeaways. And yes, I know I just said David Mills, his name is Davis Mills, but either way, really not concerned about the matchup. And as always, we're going to wrap up this video here with a low-priced option or sub-4K wide receiver play. Again, if you watched my cash plays video yesterday, I highlighted Marquez Callaway of the New Orleans Saints, and he's still my preferred wide receiver play in the 3K range. But I didn't want to highlight the same guy here in my tournament video, so I went with Khalil Shakir here of the Buffalo Bills. Now, first thing we need to keep an eye on is whether or not Isaiah McKenzie is going to play in this game, because if McKenzie does play, then Shakir probably won't be on the field all that much, but McKenzie's also going through concussion protocol. He has yet to clear that here as of Friday or even Saturday. So I don't know if he's going to play on Sunday, especially with everything going on the concussion side of things. We saw it with Nyheim Hines here earlier this week on Thursday, and then obviously with Tua, so I wouldn't be surprised if McKenzie sits. If he does, Shakir at $3,200, very interesting. I suspect the Bills are going to run a lot of 3-4 wide receiver sets as it is, because they've ruled out their tight end in Dawson Knox as well. schedule. And again, I'm just getting some exposure to this Bills offense, who has the highest implied team total on this main slate, at a really cheap price there of $3,200. But again, we need to make sure that Isaiah McKenzie is out before we consider Shakir here. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great week 5 here, folks. Let's win some money as well. In the meantime, I'm out of here.